Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to get straight to the core of ideas that, can really make a difference. Today we're diving in to Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist.
Right.
Now, this isn't just for painters or sculptors or traditional artists. It's actually a really practical guide for pretty much anyone looking to inject a bit more creativity into their life, into their work.
Exactly. Kleon really challenges that whole idea that you need to be, completely original.
Yeah.
He argues pretty convincingly, I think, that all creative work really builds on what came before it.
Okay.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to pull out the most potent and actionable stuff from the book.
Give you, the listener, a kind of shortcut.
Yeah, a shortcut to understanding how you can fuel your own creativity without getting bogged down in, abstract theory.
All right, let's jump straight in then. The first big idea sounds a bit, edgy. The honest artist steals. Obviously, he's not talking about plagiarism here, so what's the real idea?
Well, the core concept is that creativity doesn't just spring out of nowhere.
Right.
It's about seeing what's already out there, recognizing good ideas, and then repurposing them, making them your own.
So it's less like actual theft.
Much less. It's more like curating, like building this personal library of inspiration. David Bowie famously said he only studied art he could, quote, steal from.
Right.
It's about training your eye to spot the things that resonate, stuff worth stealing, and then figuring out how to use it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It reminds me of what Jonathan Lethem said. Something about how originality might just be like unrecognized sources. We just don't see the influences.
Precisely. And this isn't some radical new thought either.
No.
Think about Ecclesiastes. There is nothing new under the sun. Kleon takes that idea, but instead of seeing it as, depressing.
He sees it as freeing.
Exactly. It's liberating. If nothing's truly original, then your job isn't this impossible task of inventing from zero. It's about finding new ways to say things, maybe for a new audience or with a fresh perspective. André Gide said something similar, that everything needs to be said again because nobody was listening the first time.
Okay. So embracing influence is actually empowering.
Totally. It takes the pressure off trying to be this mythical, purely original genius.
And didn't William Ralph Inge say something like originality is undetected plagiarism? A bit cynical, maybe?
A bit, yeah. Kleon's take is more optimistic, though. He sees new ideas fundamentally as mashups or remixes.
Mashups or remixes. Okay, tell me more about that.
It's a really useful way to think about it. He uses this visual analogy, draw two parallel lines. You see the two lines, obviously. But there's also that space between them. That negative space is like a third thing, created just by the combination. It's like 1 + 1 = 3.
I see. Like the sum is greater than the parts.
Exactly. Or think about genetics. You're a mix of your parents, your ancestors, but you're not just a simple blend. You're something new that emerges from that combination.
So we're all kind of remixes of what came before.
Right, and Kleon extends this to art influences. You're a remix of your teachers, your friends, the books you read, the music you love.
And the key difference is, unlike genetics, we get to choose these influences.
That's the crucial part. You curate your own creative lineage. Goethe said, "We are shaped and fashioned by what we love." Jay-Z talked about choosing his own ancestors.
So you become this mashup of what you intentionally let into your life.
Precisely. You are what you love, in a creative sense.
Okay, so if we're choosing these influences, Kleon makes this distinction. Don't hoard, collect. What's the difference there?
It's all about intention. Hoarding is just gathering stuff indiscriminately, piling it up. Collecting, in the way Kleon means it, is selective. It's driven by genuine love and connection.
So quality over quantity.
Definitely. He talks about your idea income. What you put in directly affects what you can put out. His mom's saying really nails it. Garbage in, garbage out.
Right. So you need to be deliberate. Actively seek out good ideas from all sorts of places, books, films, music, conversations.
Anything that, as the filmmaker Jim Jarmusch put it, speaks directly to your soul.
That's a great phrase.
Isn't it? And that focus on finding things you genuinely connect with leads perfectly into his next idea. The genealogy of ideas.
Okay.
He starts with a quote from Marcel Duchamp. "I don't believe in art, I believe in artists."
Interesting. What's the connection?
Well, Kleon suggests a really practical way to study and learn, instead of trying to swallow the whole history of, say, painting or writing, which is overwhelming.
Yeah, impossible.
Right. He says pick one thinker, an artist, a writer, anyone whose work you absolutely love.
Just one to start.
Yeah. Immerse yourself in their work. Learn everything about them. Then find out who they loved. Pick 3 people they admired or were influenced by.
And then study those 3.
Exactly, and then find out who those 3 loved, and so on. You're essentially climbing up the family tree of ideas.
Ah, I like that, climbing the tree.
It makes learning feel more focused, more manageable, and it also helps you see yourself as part of a lineage, a tradition. You're not just alone in your studio.
Yeah, less isolated. He even mentions putting up pictures of your heroes, like friendly ghosts.
Friendly ghosts, yeah. And the great thing about these influences, especially the ones who aren't around anymore, is that they can't turn you away. Their lessons are all there in their work, waiting for you.
That leads to his point about school versus education, doesn't it?
It does. He makes a clear distinction. School is one thing, but education is something much bigger. It's lifelong. It's your personal responsibility, driven by curiosity.
So constantly asking questions, looking things up.
Absolutely. Casing down references in books, going deeper. He literally says, Google everything. Your dreams, your problems, see what comes up. You might find answers, or you might just find better questions.
Like RZA said, whether I went to school or not, I would always study. It's that internal drive.
Exactly. And that means always reading, haunting libraries, following the footnotes and bibliographies. It's not always the book you start with, he says. It's the book that book leads you to.
Like following a trail. John Waters' quote is great too. Nothing is more important than an unread library.
It's provocative, right? It's about potential, about the journey of discovery. Kleon basically says, don't worry about formal research, just search. Be curious.
Okay, so you're gathering all this input. How do you actually capture it? This brings us to the hands-on approach.
Yes. He's a big advocate for the physical. Carry a notebook and pen, always.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. It's your immediate capture tool. For thoughts, observations, overheard conversations, quotes you like, even just doodles.
He has those cool examples, like David Hockney tailoring his pockets for sketchbooks.
And Arthur Russell stuffing musical scores in his shirt pockets.
Yeah.
It's about making sure you can physically interact with ideas the moment they strike.
And then there's a swipe file.
Right, the swipe file. Or a morgue file, as they called it in old newspaper offices. It's your personal collection of inspiring bits and pieces.
Things worth stealing.
Exactly. It could be images, quotes, color palettes, headlines, anything that sparks something in you. Physical, digital, doesn't matter. It's your private stash. Mark Twain apparently said, "It is better to take what does not belong to you than to let it lie around neglected."
Huh. Love that. Okay, so you're collecting, you're capturing. Now, what about actually doing the work? This leads to fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and he unpacks this phrase because it can mean a couple of things.
Okay.
The common meaning is, pretend to be confident or successful until you actually are.
Right, act the part.
But Kleon emphasizes another meaning. Pretend to be making something until you actually make something. Just start. Go through the motions, even if you feel like an imposter.
Because the act of doing it is how you figure it out.
Exactly. You discover who you are by making things. He references Shakespeare, all the world's a stage.
Ah, the performance analogy.
Right. Your studio is your stage, your clothes are your costume, your tools are props, your dedicated time is the script. You step into the role.
He mentions that Glenn O'Brien quote, too. You start out as a phony and become real.
Yeah, and that story from Patti Smith's book, Just Kids, where she and Mapplethorpe were assumed to be artists just by how they looked and carried themselves. They were embodying it before they, quote-unquote, made it.
Okay, so you start doing it. That naturally leads to copying and finding your own voice. This seems central.
Hugely important. Kleon is adamant. Nobody's born with a style. You learn it. And you learn it initially by copying.
But again, not plagiarism.
Absolutely not. It's practice. It's like a mechanic taking an engine apart to see how it works. Reverse engineering.
So you copy to understand.
Precisely. Think about learning your ABCs, or a musician practicing scales, or art students copying masterpieces. It's foundational. Yoji Yamamoto said, start copying what you love. Copy, copy, copy. At the end of the copy, you will find yourself.
Even the Beatles started as a cover band.
Yeah, exactly. Paul McCartney talked about how they were just trying to sound like Buddy Holly or Little Richard at first. They only started writing their own songs, apparently, so other bands couldn't play their set.
Huh. That's practical. Salvador Dali said something strong, too. Those who do not want to imitate anything produce nothing.
It underlines the importance of learning from others. So, step 1. Identify your heroes. People whose work genuinely excites you.
And then copy them.
Copy them, yes, but not just one. That's the key. Copying one person looks like plagiarism. Copying many people, well, as Wilson Misner said, That's research.
Right, drawing from a wider pool.
And Gary Panter, the cartoonist, observed that if you rip off one person, everyone notices. If you rip off 100 people, they call you original.
Okay, but it's not just about mimicking the surface, is it?
No, that's crucial. Kleon stresses you need to steal the thinking behind the style, not just the style itself. You want to learn to see like your heroes see. Otherwise, it's just superficial.
So you internalize their approach. Francis Ford Coppola talked about this cycle.
Yeah, he said something like, we want you to steal from us at first because you'll eventually put it in your own voice, and that's how you find your voice. It's a natural progression.
Which leads from imitation to emulation. What's the shift there?
Emulation is like the next level up from imitation. It's where you start breaking away and making it your own. You've internalized the lessons, and now you're adding your own perspective, your own spin.
Can you give an example?
Kobe Bryant. He openly admitted he stole all his moves from players he admired, but he didn't just copy them exactly. He adapted them to his body, his strengths, his game. They became his moves.
Ah, okay. Adaptation is key.
Definitely. And Conan O'Brien had this great insight about comedians. He said, young comics try so hard to be like their idols, but they always fall short.
Right.
And it's in that falling short, in that inability to perfectly replicate, that their own unique voice starts to emerge. His quote was brilliant. It is our failure to become our perceived ideal that ultimately defines us and makes us unique.
Wow. So your failures in copying actually reveal your originality.
Exactly. That gap is where you live.
Yeah.
You study the masters, you see where your version differs, and then you lean into that difference. That's how you transform their work into something new, something uniquely yours. It's the best way to honor them, really.
That makes a lot of sense. Kleon then connects this to fan fiction as a starting point. He even mentions writing a Jurassic Park sequel as a kid.
Yeah. And he makes this broader point that, in a way, maybe all fiction is fan fiction.
How so?
Because we're always building on, responding to, or being inspired by the stories and worlds that came before. So his advice flips the usual, write what you know.
Instead, he says,
Write what you like. Write the story you wish existed. Create the art you want to see or hear.
so it's about filling a gap you perceive.
Exactly. Applying it to anything. What product do you wish existed? What service? What kind of music? He mentions Bradford Cox from Deer Hunter recreating albums by his favorite bands before they were released, just based on his imagination.
Wow, that's dedication.
Right. It's about asking, what did my heroes miss? What could they have done differently? And then you go and do that. That becomes your contribution.
So your manifesto is basically make the stuff you wish someone else would make.
Precisely. Be the creator you're waiting for.
Okay, now we've talked a lot about ideas, influences, remixing. Kleon brings it back to the physical again with use your hands.
Yes, this is a big one for him. He quotes John Cleese. We don't know where we get our ideas from. What we do know is that we do not get them from our laptops.
Oh, and Linda Berry's line. In the digital age, don't forget to use your digits.
It's so important. Our hands are our original tools. Kleon argues that staring at screens all day can create this distance, like Stanley Donwood called it, working behind a sheet of glass. It can stifle things.
So getting physical helps the brain.
He believes so. Movement can trigger thought. Just going through the motions physically can sometimes kickstart you mentally. He mentions Edward Tufte urging us to spend more time in the real world, less time looking at screens.
He contrasts old workshops with modern creative writing programs, too.
Yeah, the hands-on craft versus just, double space times New Roman. He talks about his own newspaper blackout poems, how the physical act of blacking out words with a marker was essential to the process.
So computers are better for editing than generating.
That's his take, often. The ease of hitting delete can make us too critical too early, whereas messing around with physical materials allows for more happy accidents, more exploration.
Which leads to his two-desk system.
Right. One analog desk, paper, pens, scissors, tape, no screens. That's for generating ideas, playing around. And then a separate digital desk for editing, polishing, publishing.
So you create a flow between the two.
Exactly. Treat the analog space like playtime, like craft time. Scribble, cut, pin things up, get your body involved. Then move to the digital to refine and share.
Okay, speaking of process, what about downtime? He talks about embrace boredom and side projects.
Yes. This is counterintuitive for a lot of people focused on productivity. He quotes Jessica Hisha. The work you do while you procrastinate is probably the work you should be doing for the rest of your life.
Wow. So pay attention to your side gigs.
Definitely. Those things you tinker with just for fun, the play, often hold the seeds of your most original work. He suggests having multiple projects going at once.
for productive procrastination.
Exactly. When you get stuck on Project A, you switch to Project B for a bit. It keeps you moving, keeps the creative juices flowing.
And actual boredom, is that good?
He argues it's essential. You need that empty space for ideas to bubble up. He shares a great quote from a coworker. "When I get busy, I get stupid."
Huh. I can relate to that. He even mentions ironing shirts as idea time.
Right. Mundane tasks can free up the mind. So allow yourself time to just mess around, wander, get lost, and keep all your different interests alive. Don't silo them.
Let them talk to each other.
Yes, Stephen Tomlinson's idea. If you neglect a passion, it's like having phantom limb pain. Kleon found his music, helped his writing, and vice versa. Having a hobby, something just for you without pressure, is incredibly valuable.
Okay, so you're creating, maybe procrastinating productively.
Yeah.
Eventually you have to share your work. This feels like a big hurdle.
It can be. Kleon is realistic about it. After college or after you finish something you're proud of, the world isn't usually sitting there waiting breathlessly.
Yeah, people are busy. Stephen Pressfield said, "It's not that people are mean or cruel, they're just busy."
Exactly. But Kleon turns this around. That initial obscurity, it's actually a gift.
How so?
It gives you freedom to experiment, to suck for a while, to find your voice without the pressure of an audience or critics or sales figures. Enjoy it while it lasts, he says.
Okay, but eventually you do want people to see it. What's his formula?
It's deceptively simple. 2 steps. 1, do good work consistently, keep learning, keep improving. 2, share it with people.
And the internet makes step 2 easier than ever.
Massively easier. His secret of the internet is also simple. 1, wonder at something. Find something that genuinely fascinates you. 2, invite other people to wonder with you.
So share your obsessions.
Pretty much. Find your niche wonder and be open about it. He argues artists aren't magicians. There's no penalty for revealing your secrets. Think Bob Ross or Martha Stewart. They build empires by sharing their process.
And sharing can actually help you learn, too.
Definitely. Kleon talks about his newspaper blackout site. Putting the process out there led to feedback, new ideas, connections. The internet isn't just for finished work. It's an incubator.
Having a blog or website can even be motivating.
Yeah, that reverse chronological feed pushes you to keep adding new stuff. So learn basic web skills, blog, use social media thoughtfully, share little bit sketches, works in progress, tips, links.
And don't worry too much about theft. He quotes Howard Aiken.
Right. Don't worry about people stealing your ideas. If your ideas are any good, you'll have to ram them down people's throats. Sharing is usually the bigger challenge.
Okay, sharing online helps you find your scene, even if it's not local.
Yeah, Kleon lives in Austin, a creative hub, but says many of his most important connections are online. You don't have to move to New York or LA anymore.
You can build your own world around you.
Exactly. Surround yourself with the books, art, music, and online communities that feed you. He uses that incredible Franz Kafka quote. It isn't necessary that you leave home. Sit at your desk and listen. Don't wait. Be still and alone. The whole world will offer itself to you. Find your focus wherever you are.
But he also says distance can be good.
He does acknowledge that. Getting away, changing your environment can shake things up creatively. Jonah Lehrer's point. Distance and difference are the secret tonic of creativity. Stepping outside your comfort zone sparks new connections.
So maybe find a place with bad weather.
Huh. He jokes about that, yeah. Less temptation to go outside, more time to work. But really, it's about finding your right place, physical or virtual, that supports your work and connects you with interesting people.
All right. In the midst of all this creative striving, he drops in some simple human advice. Be nice. It's not that hard.
It sounds basic, but it's crucial, especially online. It really is just the golden rule. Assume people will see what you write about them.
So ignore the trolls.
Pretty much. Focus on making friends, not enemies. Say nice things about people's work online. Kurt Vonnegut's rule, you've got to be kind.
And apply garbage in, garbage out to your online feeds, too.
Absolutely. Follow people who are smarter than you, doing interesting work, people you can learn from. Like Questlove said, only have people in your circle you can learn from.
And that Harold Ramis advice. Find the most talented person.
And go stand next to them. And if you're the most talented person, find a new room. Always be learning.
What about the urge to argue online?
Resist it. His wife's advice is golden. Quit picking fights on Twitter and go make something. Channel that energy into creation, not complaining.
Okay. Building on being nice, there's appreciate without expecting, like with fan mail.
Yeah, he points out that sending fan mail often comes with this hidden expectation of a reply. But if you genuinely love someone's work, you shouldn't need their validation. Hugh MacLeod said, "The best way to get approval is to not need it."
So how should you show appreciation?
Make it public, but without demands. Write a blog post about their work, create something inspired by them, answer questions people have about their field, show your appreciation through your own work.
This ties into the myth of originality and validation.
Right. He uses that Craig Damrauer line, "Modern art, I could do that, plus, yeah, but you didn't." Doing the work is hard, and validation often comes late, if at all.
So you can't rely on external approval.
You really can't. Good work often looks effortless, but it hides years of struggle. Expect to be misunderstood or ignored sometimes. The key is to be too busy working to care too much.
But validation is still nice when it comes.
Oh, absolutely. It's a boost. That's why he suggests keeping a praise file, emails, nice comments to look at on bad days. Focus on the positive reinforcement, not the rejections.
To keep doing the work long-term, he advises something that sounds, well, unexciting. Be boring.
Huh. Yes. It's about sustainable creativity. He quotes Flaubert. Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work.
So ditch the romantic myth of the tortured, chaotic artist.
Pretty much. Creativity takes energy. You need to conserve it, take care of yourself, assume you'll live a long time. Patti Smith told young artists to go to the dentist.
Basic stuff. Eat well, sleep, exercise.
The fundamentals. Forget Neil Young's "better to burn out than fade away." Kleon says, burn slow and see your grandkids. Build a sustainable practice.
And part of that sustainability is practical. Do your homework. Learn to manage your money.
Super important, often overlooked by creatives. Learn about money early, his grandpa's advice. It's not the money you make, it's the money you hold on to.
So budget, live within your means, save.
All of it. Say no to excessive consumerism, get the cheapest education you can, and crucially accept you'll probably need a day job, at least for a while.
But a day job isn't necessarily bad for creativity.
Not at all. It provides money, obviously, but also structure, routine, connection to the world. And sometimes artistic freedom, Bill Cunningham's point about not taking money so they can't tell you what to do.
Plus, you can learn useful skills.
Totally. Working in a library, doing web design, copywriting skills that can feed back into your creative work. Yes, it takes time, but routine itself can fight inertia, which he calls the death of creativity.
Find pockets of time and stick to a schedule.
Work gets done in the time available. It might feel like a double life, but find a job that pays okay, isn't soul-crushing, and leaves you some energy for your real passion.
Okay, to track all this effort over time, keep a logbook.
Yeah, building a body of work is slow accumulation. Daily effort adds up. A calendar helps plan, but a logbook helps you look back.
Like Seinfeld's "Don't break the chain" for consistency.
Similar idea, but the logbook is simpler. Just a daily record. What did you work on? What did you do? Even brief notes. It's surprisingly useful months or years later, like a sailor's log.
He also mentions Nicholson Baker's question.
Right. What's the best thing that happened today? Asking that each night helps you appreciate small wins and maybe find writing material you overlooked.
Moving from the individual to relationships. Marry well.
A big one. Choosing your life partner and close friends, collaborators, is critical. He quotes Tom Waits about his wife, Kathleen Brennan, who's also his key collaborator.
Being married to a creative person isn't always easy.
Definitely not. It often requires a lot of support, understanding, and sometimes practical help from the partner. His wife's funny take on it highlights that reality.
Okay, final big idea. Constraints liberate. This sounds paradoxical.
It does, but it makes so much sense in our world of infinite options. Too much choice can be paralyzing. Creative block, he argues, often comes from not having limitations.
So limits actually help.
They force you to be inventive. Examples: write a song only on your lunch break, paint with only one color, start a business with no money, make a movie on your iPhone, use only spare parts.
Jack White said something about too many options killing creativity.
Exactly. Telling yourself you have all the time in the world, all the money, that just kills creativity. Constraints give you something to push against. Think Dr. Seuss writing The Cat in the Hat with that tiny vocabulary list.
Or green eggs and ham on a bet using only 50 words.
Incredible examples. Saul Steinberg said, "What we respond to in any work of art is the artist's struggle against his or her limitations. It's that struggle that makes it interesting."
So creativity is about what you put in and what you leave out.
Precisely. The choices you make within constraints define the work.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. Our deep dive into Steal Like an Artist really shows how embracing influence, finding your voice through dedicated practice in copying, sharing your work generously, and even using constraints creatively are all fundamental.
Yeah, they're keys to unlocking that potential. And these ideas aren't just for people who call themselves artists. They're really for anyone wanting to be more innovative, more creative in whatever they do.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, building on that idea of constraints. Think about the blank spaces in your own life, your own work. What are you actively choosing to leave out?
hmm And how might those choices, those self-imposed limits or conscious omissions, actually be shaping your most unique, most interesting contributions? Something to ponder.
Definitely something to think about as you explore your own creative path.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.